Yeah, it was over there. I was going crazy looking for it. I figured it fell down.
Thursday morning, he said, I was worried that the battery would be gone. Later that things would be back in.
Just put it in the battery.
Yeah, this is something more than
Bayam Darkecha, we're learning the Maimer of Simcha on page Kuf Samach. Ois Ches. We're talking about those things that get in the way of our Simcha. L'famim ha'adam margish atzvus. Sometimes a person feels atzvus, feels sadness, because he feels that there are many things in his life that are missing, that he was hoping to have. It could be in Gashmis, it could be in Ruchnius, but he feels that he's a Baal Chisar. Simcha comes from a feeling of shleimus. That's the Maral, the Svarm explained, that when a person feels that I'm here, I am. There's a sense of shleimus, so that brings simcha. When a person feels an emptiness and a lack, that's atzvus. So even when it comes to simple things, there are things that he needs in his life, that he feels that he needs, and he doesn't have. That takes away any sense of shleimus. It can be something even silly or small, depending upon how silly and small the person is. And there's atzvus, sadness. One of the many strategies that the Yetzer Hara has to bring a person to atzvus, that ever since we're children, it's very hard to shake this. Child wants something, and when the child doesn't get what he or she wants, there's crying, sometimes a tantrum. So this grows up with us, becomes more sophisticated, slightly more sophisticated, depending on the person, where there's atzvus because the Yetzer Hara reminds the person to think about those things in life that he wants. She writes it, things that are very important to him. But he doesn't have them yet. It's not working out. He doesn't have them. So this is a very, very basic, primal, and sort of immature type of atzvus, but it's something that is very, very pervasive. it's something that we, from our time in this world, we became used to thinking about those things. Instead of being besimcha with what we have, we fall into that asus over what we don't have. And the madrega of simcha is a madrega where a person lives a life focusing not on what he doesn't have, but what he does have. But this is not easy. Obviously, this is exactly what Hashem wants me to have, and if He wanted me to have that which I don't have, I would have it. So that requires emunah. The person says the bracha in the morning, Sha'asli kol tzarki, to think about what those words mean. Sha'asli kol tzarki. That Hashem has done for me, has given me all that I need. Sha'asli kol tzarki. If I don't have that, I could daven for it. If I think that it's something that would improve my life, improve my avodas Hashem, and so on. Again, whether it's in Gashim or Ruchnis, but Sha'asli kol tzarki means that I'm happy with what I have, and I'm happy because what I have is all that I need to have. This moment of my life, this is what Hashem has determined that I need to have. And if Hashem has not given you that which you want, the siman bar is a clear sign. Shekais lo tov lo lekabel is that at this time, it's not for you to have that. It's simply not for you. Now this goes from something very, very small to something as much like a person who wants very much to get married, or somebody who wants very much to have a child, or whatever it is. And Kadosh Baruch Hu has delayed that. Again, to daven for sure. Rachli made daven, Rivki made daven. If they didn't daven, Hashem wanted them to daven. There isn't in tefillah, but tefillah, that's a very, very, very delicate balance between recognizing a certain chisaron and humbly asking Hashem. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Asking Hashem that if you feel, Hashem, if you recognize, if you see that this is something that would be good for me, I'm asking you to, if I could draw this into my life in a way that's clear and that's real and that I have. And if it's not, and if today you have decided that that's not for me, that means that's the best thing, and I'm besimcha. I'm not going to be sad about that. I'm besimcha. It's not so pasha, but the davening, you have to find that balance, especially when it comes to something which is so important. Not a small thing, a big thing. Getting married and having a child. These are very, very big things. It's very hard. We see even great people that says that Chana was maras ruach, that she was her soul was embittered because she didn't have a child. She was bitter. But remember, there's a very big difference. It doesn't say that she was sad. I'm not going to go into now the difference between sadness and bitterness. Bitterness is something that builds. Sadness is something that's just a feeling of nothing, of emptiness. Bitterness means Chana believed that her having a child would give her the opportunity to serve Hashem in a very elevated way, and it was coming from such a place. So her taina was, I want to do this for you. I want to do this for you, and that was the truth. She wanted to do it for Hashem, and so she was crying, and the bitterness came from not being able to serve Hashem in the way that she felt she could do best. But it's not the same thing as atzvus, as sadness. Sadness just debilitates and paralyzes, and the person doesn't have a cheshik for anything. Ki kol ma Hashem is b'chaisa, because whatever Hashem does, it's for our best. One needs to trust Hashem and rely upon Him b'leiv shalom, with the whole heart. Because you might think that this is good, and again, you could ask that if this is good for me, then please Hashem. It would make me very happy. Please, and so on. But Hashem knows. Ultimately, Hashem knows. Masha Tov Be'emes. Rak biyado the Sadr Sakol. V'da, and no. Shekol zman she'adam chayshe v'soymech el anoshim. As long as a person lives a life where he's depending upon other people, or kol daracher, or whatever else it is that he's depending upon, he depends on people or things, places other than Hashem. Or you might say, in addition to Hashem. This doesn't sound nice to say, other than Hashem. So it's in addition to Hashem. So when there's somebody that's going through something, he's lacking something, and you say to that person, that, to betach Hashem, trust in Hashem, and so on, the person usually will say, and so do we, of course I trust in Hashem, but, and then like with everything, when you put in that little word, but, so then it means, of course I trust in Hashem, but I don't trust in Hashem. So those three letters take away the entire meaning of what bitachon is, which is to give oneself over completely to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be samach in Him completely, and not to have anything else or anyone else that you rely on and that you depend on. That's why da kol zman she'adam chayshe v'samach lanoshim al kol davar acher azay yeh bo achiza shel asus. That's why the world has so much. One of the reasons that the world is filled with so much asus is because of this dependency on others and expectations from others that are not met, and so on. All the disappointments. Ki hamokum hayichidi shesham hasimcha amitis v'shleima. The only true place where a person can find emes simcha, which is by Hashem, which is always v'ched v'b'mkom hu hamokum shel bitachon hamiti v'agom v'Hashem as well. It's only when a person has absolute, complete trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a new sefer that came out from Rav Schwartz in Bilvavi Mishkan Evne. Da is Bitchaincha. It's around 300 pages or so, a little bit, maybe more, on bitachon. I went through half of it so far. It's mamish. There are many svarim on bitachon, especially over the past few years. Many svarim have come out, and a lot in Hebrew and in English, but this is on a different level. The whole avodah of bitachon, what it is. It's a whole different approach and way of looking at bitachon. Which maybe we'll get to that. But only a person that has true bitachon lives a life of simcha. Could be in a place of simcha. Because otherwise, you're depending on somebody else for your simcha, for your feeling of shleimus. Could be, you're upset because your order didn't come from Amazon or something. So you're depending upon somebody in a warehouse or somebody. You're depending upon having something, and your simcha is going to be when you have that thing, or having whatever it is. It could be again something which is more chashuv, but benkach or benkach, it's this is a world that is unpredictable and not dependable, and you have people that depend upon their children's success to be b'simcha. That's a very complicated one, and it's very, very hard. For a parent to watch a child that's not succeeding, and to continue on with being b'simcha. That's a very, very hard. That's one of the hardest nisyanis of a person, because you see your child, and your child is chas v'shalom is not doing well. So your instinct is to fall down with the kid, and to be sucked into that place, and for it to completely undermine your whole simcha sechaim, because you love your child so much and the child's not succeeding. It could be something like even, whatever, in school, something. It doesn't have to be, God forbid, something major, but to see a child that's not doing well, and there's a child that left Chas v'Shalom, that left Yiddishkeit, that's struggling with drinking or drugs or other things. And how is it possible? And at times I've heard parents ask this, how is it possible for me to forget about simcha? How is it possible for me to just go on with my life? Because you were depending upon that child's success. It's normal. And that child means more to you than anything in the world. So the child's not successful. You are now an unbelievable Baal Chisaron because you're missing this child's success in your life. The child is not doing well. So how can you be b'simcha? That's also a dependency. It's also a dependency. It's something other than. It doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean you don't love the child. But to fall apart and to lose yourself, even though that's the first instinct, but the avoda of a mammon is to overcome that. It doesn't mean to be complacent. It doesn't mean to give up, chas v'shalom. But it doesn't mean that you can't be b'simcha. And that's why even when these questions have come up over time, I remember a few years ago it was horrible that right before the Hilula Lag Baimer we got the news from Meron. That was terrible, mamish. It was a few hours before we heard what happened in Meron, and then I was getting calls from everybody from places, first from our Chevra, and then from other places where they wanted to make Hilulas. How can we go on? Should we make a Hilula? And the same thing. Should we? So they already know. Should we have Hakofis this year? Should there be Hakofis this year? Simchas Torah, because of October 7th. Should there be Hakofis? Or how should we do Hakofis differently? I don't think we should go the other way instead of this way. So how should the Hakofis be? It can't be that it should be the same Hakofis. This Mahalach is not Jewish. We have halachas of Avelis, and how to remember, and how to observe. We don't cancel Purim. We don't cancel Hakafis. We don't cancel Lag Baimer. Just the other way. And anybody who's familiar with the Lubavitch Rebbe's Chusik and his Torahs, the way to defeat the other side is by adding more and more simcha. But it's amazing how many intelligent and fine Jews have this, because they believe that it's a certain type of empathy. I'm not empathizing with my brothers and sisters if I dance on Lag Baimer when this terrible thing happened and their parents are mourning, and their kids are mourning because of what happened in Meron. How could I be b'simcha? How could I be b'simcha when there are so many low-level soldiers that have been killed and the hostages are... It requires a certain level of emunah and a certain bigness of a person to be able to make room in his heart for both of those things. And it's not that one doesn't care, nor is it a lack of empathy, although it will be interpreted by many people in such a way, and that's why everybody is always thinking, should we do this? Maybe we shouldn't do it. Maybe maybe we shouldn't do this. So then they come up with something like, so all right, at the chasna we'll commemorate, but because they feel guilty, maybe we shouldn't be getting married. After all, there's a milchama, so what right do we have to get to get married? Or why should the children get married if they're lo aleinu, they're somebody's tsaris, and how could we get? And that is identified as a type of empathy, of feeling the sadness and feeling tzibrochkeit over the tsaros of other Jews is a very holy thing, but it doesn't mean that now there are no chasnas and there's no purim and there's no simchas Torah. And could you imagine if it had been like that for my parents' generation, for the survivors, if they came out from that, and so they could have done like our ancestors did in the midbar. They could have just dug graves and lied down in their graves. But they didn't. They went on with making bar mitzvahs and making chasnas and dancing hakafas and dancing purim. Never, ever, ever for a minute forgetting what was. Not a lack of empathy. There were people who felt very deeply what they were missing in their lives. But the way to continue on of a mammon, the way of a mammon to continue on is to be filled with that dependency only on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to know that He knows what's good, He knows what's right, and we don't understand this. It's just a very simple Tmimistic Pshitistic way that right now HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be b'simcha and to celebrate what we do have in the world. Then there's a time, like Shlomo says, Eis Milchama, Eis Shalom, Eis Lecha, Eis Lisa. There's a time to mourn. But you have people that they feel that unless they engage in excessive mourning, which was a few parashiyos ago, different ways that people would express excessive mourning, which in ancient times, cutting themselves and so on. It's not Jewish. It's not a Jewish way. It's bechlal not a Jewish way. There are shiurim, there are halachas about mourning, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Come, get up. When Shiva is over, it's the morning at the end of Shiva, finish Shachris, then shtayov, get up. Vayokem Avram me'al pnei Mesa." Avram Avinu loved Sarah Imeinu more than we could understand. Because Avram Avinu's whole midah is what? Chesed, Zahav. Avram is the embodiment, is the merkava of love. So Avram Avinu and Sarah Imeinu is the most romantic story of all time. Is Avram Avinu and Sarah Imeinu. Chazal tell us that when Bava Basra Gemara says that when Rabbi Benai went to check to see the measurements of the Marasam HaPela, for the Kahanim where they can go. So he saw Avram Avinu and Sarah Imeinu. It says that they were embracing each other. Not masking such a thing, what that means. Avram Avinu and Sarah Imeinu. So Avram Avinu was a very empathetic person. He would, even the woke people would like respect him. Avram Avinu was very, because of course they're the most loving people. So Avram Avinu, of course they're busy by encampments and protests and stuff like that. But when they're not fighting for Hamas, otherwise they're very empathetic people. So Avram Avinu was the most empathetic person who ever lived. He was the most loving person who ever lived. And it says in the Torah, it says that Avram Avinu made a hesped and he was crying, and then the next pasuk says, "Shoy, vayokem Avram me'al pnei Mesa." Avram Avinu got up. So the observer outside would say, "Wow, how unbelievably cold and heartless. He should have really just thrown himself into the grave together with Sarah Imeinu. What kind of a person is that? He calls himself a man of chesed. His wife is lying there, she's dead, and he's getting up. Not only that, but you remember what was he busy with when he got up? He was handling with the B'nai Chais, and he's real estate. Avinu was busy. He's a busy person. So the outside observer would say he probably didn't really love Sarah Imeinu as much as I love my wife, because I wouldn't get up. I would remain flat on my back, and that would be because I really love my wife, and that love means empathy. And empathy means that if there are people who have died, then we can't sing Purim, and we can't sing Lag Baimer. And I've already heard people talking about it. So I had somebody ask me, well, what kind of hakaf is you? There was a rabbi that called me from the other side of the country. He asked him, what kind of hakaf is you having? That's what he asked me. What kind of hakaf is you having? Simple story. I said, what kind of hakaf is? The first one, and then there's a second one, and there's a third one. Hopefully we'll get to 7. It's a shame. But no, I mean, what kind of hakaf is? I said, you're asking me if we're going to be going around 7 times singing Kel Malei Rachman? Is that what you're asking me? We're going to walk slowly with a procession of Sefer Torah, and we're going to say Kel Malei Rachman. We're going to walk around like that, and that's how we're going to beat Hamas. If we would have been doing that over history, we would have been in the grave thousands of years ago. We're the only people that don't do that, and that's why they're all dead and we're alive. because we always are Avram Avinu Dik. We're always Vayakum. Never ever do we stay buried. It's always Vayakum. All the ones that tried to kill us, starving, gone, because they don't get up. They don't get up. Something weird happens. When they're at the top of their game, they're gewaldig, they're besimcha, they're dancing. But when it's not good, when they come in, last, they don't make it to the World Series or something, then they're done. And they can't stand us. They hate us because no matter what they do, and no matter how hard they try to take our simcha sachaim away from us, by Am Yisrael is always by Yaakov Avram. Always. Always. The best shot they gave it was the Holocaust. That was their best shot. They tried really hard. That was impressive. That was impressive. And Vayakim. And those who were a little older, and even the younger ones, who grew up knowing people that had 6 million reasons not to get up. And they got up. Vayakim. So when you hear these kind of questions, what's going to be Simchas Tavshin Pei Hey? What kind of hakafas you have? You have the most lebedik hakafas. Because lebedik means to be alive. And it means to trust that there's a Rebbeinu Shalom that runs the world. And there's much more that we have that we don't have. And it does not mean that we don't care about what was lost. I had this chus that this Tzedekis Hadass Levenstein, I'm talking about this. Hadass, she came to visit my wife and myself the other day. She came to the house. We spent quite a bit of time talking. And she told us that, she was telling us that there was some person came from a newspaper to interview them after her husband, Elisha, was killed. So there was somebody came after the shiva to interview her. She was sitting with one of her kids, with one of her sons. She has 9 or 6 children, beautiful children. She was showing us pictures, and so she was sitting with one of the kids, and the interviewer was from a secular station or paper, I don't know, and the interview was going on and on about the emptiness and the terrible tragedy and the suffering and the little boy whispered to his mother, Ima, who are these people? Maybe we can go help them. Can we go see them? So she said, shh, he's talking about us. It's a great story. He's talking about us. But such a strong person, such strong people, the way that she was mechazik the children, that they didn't see themselves as being a bunch of nebuchs, a bunch of Yisoimim. I'm an almana and I have Yisoimim. She doesn't see it that way at all. She said all the Americans are coming from all over, burying my children in all kinds of toys and nash. She says because they think that's they need to give us a certain share of chocolate bars so that we could go on living. She laughs at all the Americans with a bunch of babies. She didn't use those words, but she was just mama. She just laughs at it. She doesn't have to say that. Chaskim, mamshichim, zo. And she says that the Americans can't think like that. Because in America, she said, she never left Eretz Yisrael. This is the first time. So she said the Americans, everything is, her English is perfect. So everything is sugar-coated. Everything is sugar-coated here. So everything has to be pretty and has to be nice. And if it's not pretty, then it's not nice, then it's no good. Everybody's upset. We have no need for that. Pretty and nice, we're talking about losing your husband. She said that's what I had. Hashem gave us a gift for 13 years. We're very proud of him. He died defending Am Yisrael. Period. She says, it doesn't mean you don't think I don't have my moments. She said, you don't think there's no Bacha Sivka B'Layla? Of course there's a Bacha Sivka B'Layla. She doesn't miss him. Of course she says I miss him. But the Americans think and she said it's not so plush. She said, because I raised my children to be very, very simple, and now like every day there are deliveries of toys and different things, all the chavras, putting together packages for them. She says it's horrible. Because then if they see it now, they want it. They haven't had it once. Now, I don't want all this stuff, but this is the American way of empathizing. They think that here I need to have more chocolate and more toys. And our life, the life that we live over here, is real. It's pneumius. That's what she was saying. It's real. It's raw. It's not about chocolate bars and toys. Okay, that doesn't mean there aren't others who are different from her. But just listening, my wife and I just sitting and listening to her, without any bitterness, just such a emunah. You can't fake that. It's just unbelievable. This is a response that comes from a place of emunah. Kadosh Baruch Hu knows what's best. If Hashem said that it's time for this person to go, it's time to go. Gandik. And you sit Shiva, and you do what you have to, and then Vayakum, and then there's Shloshim, and then there's the year, and you say Kaddish, you miss the person, and there's Bacha Sivka B'Layla, cry, we have Tisha B'Av once a year, but we don't have Tisha B'Av every day of the year. And Simchas Torah is Simchas Torah, and Purim is Purim. There's a time to dance, there's a time to cry, there's a time for everything under the sun, as Shlomo said. And the way of a mammon, of a person of Emunah, is to live at that time according to the will of Hashem, not how I might feel this moment. And what's going to be by the hakafis? How are you going to have the hakafis? And then they're going to be angry people who are going to say you're not mourning enough on October 7th. Wait till you see what's going to go on. Oh, there's going to be fireworks, especially in Eretz Yisrael. There'll be tinus. How could you dance when my nephew was in the army, was killed? How are you dancing? What are you making a Simchas Torah? And how could the Charedim do this? And how could the Fruma do this? Oh, it's going to be fireworks. Don't you know what happened at Simchas Torah? So how could you do such a thing? It's not a steer. But for those people, you understand they're in a lot of pain. Even the ones who are not in so much pain, they use it as an excuse to express that they're in pain, and it's not a steer. It's a different ace. It's a different time. Today is Simchas Torah. When Simchas Torah, Jews besimcha with the Torah that Hashem gave us. It doesn't mean that we don't. It doesn't mean that we don't care, that we don't empathize, that we don't miss. But it's not Tisha B'Av today. It's not Shiva. It's a time of Vayakum. And that's Hashem's Eitzah, Rabbis Machshavos Leivish, Vatzas Hashem, Hi Sakum. Hashem's Eitzah is always Takum, get up. That's the Eitzah of Hashem, not to stay on your back. And the first lesson that I've learned with him, that he taught us, because that's the first Levaya that we have in Torah is Sari Menu's Levaya. So you know that anytime something is first in the Torah, it means it's the yesod of how we're supposed to behave. So Avinu, the Ish HaChesed, taught us that you get up from the Levaya. That's what he taught us, that you get up from the Levaya. Our father, him and his brother, were the two of them were the only ones who survived, and they were inseparable. They were inseparable. So when my uncle's older, my uncle passed away some years ago, and when my uncle passed away, so my first thought was what's going to be with my father? The two of them, Macho and Yitzhak, Mordechai and Yitzhak, Macho and Yitzhak, the two of them are inseparable, and I know what's going to be. My father without Yitzhak, I couldn't think of my father without his brother. It's a whole different, the way that my father went through that time. No, I can't describe it. It was not here.
I went to Menachem, my holy father.
Yeah.
And told people the story that I was the only one there. And when I got up to leave, he wouldn't let me leave. That's okay. Because I felt bad. I said, Mr. Weinberg, maybe you want to go eat something? No. Sit there. And I left, and I told Johnny after, it's unbelievable how a Yid can, be Tzabrachin, but also
Yeah.
all the other midos were all engaged.
That's exactly
Nothing
it.
was-
I
nothing
appreciate
was-
that, Jay. I didn't see any change at all in him. At all. And I knew that that the two of them, that there's something unbelievable, the two of them, and Chlal, not a change in his hanhaga. It was something that I was watching the whole time from the beginning when the news first came. And there was that moment, and my father, suddenly said, "Shai, it's a shtul, it's a shtul." That was it, like weiter. So it's a certain way of thinking that it's not so common anymore to see such a thing. But that's how it began with Avram Avinu. Tess, Hametzias Hagashmis Shalom Hazeh, Hametzias Hagashmis of this world. Shor Shabi Yisota Ofer. Now that's something that the Bilvavi has written an entire sefer on the different yisods. He wrote a sefer on Ofer, on Atzvus, on sadness. It comes from the yisod of Ofer, the earth, dirt. Right? There's the different yisodas. And Ofer, the midah of Ofer means lifelessness, heaviness, depression, despair. That's Ofer, the midah of earth. The opposite of air. It just lies there. The earth, it lies there. All physical reality is rooted, the Messias is essentially rooted in this Yesod of Ofer, of the earth. Therefore, just as the earth is very, very Megusham, the most Megusham thing, the most physical thing in the world is the earth itself, is the ground. That's why, like the Sfarim explain, the ground doesn't have any personality. You ever noticed that? It doesn't have any. The ground has no personality. That's why you could stomp on it. It doesn't even say anything. Somebody that has a little bit of a chiyas, if you step on him, he'll say, "Hey, what's up? What's with you?" The ground, you walk on the ground all the time. The ground just lies there. All right, nothing. Doesn't. Its lifelessness is absolute. What's remarkable is that in there you can plant things. That's amazing. Dafka in the earth you plant things. But the earth itself, the midah of Ofer, is a midah of Gashmias. Gashmias doesn't have any spiritual content. The same thing you'll see like in the animal kingdom, right? So you have the earth and the animals. There's one animal in particular that is the embodiment of the physical world. Which animal is that? The chamor, the donkey. Chamor is from the word chomer. Chomer means chomius. It means physical. And that's why you could put anything you want on the donkey. I remember when we were first married, we lived in Yerushalayim. I was learning there in Yerushalayim. And we lived by I can't give out Mordechai, and we needed a refrigerator. The apartment didn't have a working refrigerator, so in those years I don't know how it is now. But anyway, we went to this place in Gula, and in the back, it was the best refrigerator we ever had. In the back of this place in Gula, we rented the refrigerator for the year. For the entire year, it was $50. We rented the refrigerator. It was the coldest, best refrigerator ever. It was like in the 1940s. We got this refrigerator, and there was a Chassidish guy not in Gula Meshar, it was a Chassidish guy, and he told us when it's going to be delivered. So gave him where the place is. So I'm sitting there with my wife. It was like lunchtime or something. I'm sitting with my wife, and we see by the door of the Merpeset, there's an Arab guy pulling a donkey with a refrigerator on it from Meir Sharm to Bayit Vagan. You know the from Meir Shar to Bayit Vagan, this guy is pulling the donkey. This donkey is walking with one of those old ice boxes, The refrigerator is schlepped to Chazai. And both of them looked like they were from the time of the Churban Beis Hamikdash. The Arab himself looked like he was 100 years old, and like he didn't look younger than that. And he's pulling it. They might have left when I got it. I don't know when they left. He's walking with this. He's walking. That was the delivery. My wife said, give him a couple of shkal liras at that time. Give him something. Poor guy. I felt like I wanted to give the donkey something. I gave the Arab something. I wanted to give at least a drink to that poor behemoth. Sleeping, it was hot. But they have such a midah. A donkey is a chamor. Chamor means chaymer. Chaymer means it doesn't have anything of his own. It just doesn't have. This whole world is the midah of offer, of chumriyus. And that's why offer is not just a symbol, it's the metzius of Gashmius, is the offer, is the earth. And it's through that yesod of offer that the midah of atzvus and of atzlus, of sadness and laziness, are enclosed. Kvedus, atzvus, kvedus, heaviness and not wanting to do anything and being lazy and just wanting to stay in one place. Like the offer stays in one place, the earth doesn't go anywhere, it just stays there. And you don't have any, when you're not motivated, you feel empty without any koiches, that's the yesod of offer, earth. Sometimes that yesod of offer takes over a person and becomes the dominant yesod in the person's life, and then he just can't do anything. Doesn't feel like doing anything. There's no cheshik for anything. It's sad. It just sits there. Nothing. That those midas, those feelings of atzvus, sadness, and kvedus and heaviness, come from the yesod offer. That's from the yesod offer inside of the person. Now we know that the whole purpose of everything that's physical is that we should lift up this world. This world should be lifted up to be a means of serving Hashem and honoring Hashem and so on, revealing His presence. Therefore, the moment that the nefesh bahamis, the animal soul, brings a person to this place of sadness, of atzvus, vada margish matzev ruach ra, and the person feels what's called a bad mood, matzev ruach ra, which can happen even though you don't have anything specific that you're mourning over. Sometimes it's just you're in a lousy mood. You just don't feel like you have any energy or cheshik for anything. It's a matzav ruach ra, so that when you feel this matzav ruach ra, there's a siman she's oyer etzlo yisoda offer b'tzahara. Whenever a person feels this way, bad mood. Again, you don't know what, it's just a bad mood. Emptiness, a heaviness, a lack of will and motivation and so on. When this is in the oyer etzlo yisoda offer b'tzahara, you should know that, he's saying you should know, that's a siman that at that time, at that moment, the yesod of offer, this yesod of offer, tzahara, the unholy expression, because there's a certain time that's needed to, but the unholy manifestation of this yesod of offer has now entered into your consciousness, and that's why you're feeling that way. Tzarich miyad v'yikonis b'koach l'simcha. That's why Rabbi Nachman spoke about this so often. One of the main themes of Rabbi Nachman's Torah is simcha, and therefore Rabbi Nachman said that you be misamech yourself immediately, even with something silly. You recall he said that many times, even with stambit. He said with narishkai, as long as it's not anything that's forbidden, God forbid. But to be misamech yourself, a good job, whatever it is. to be misamech oneself. How many times over the years that talking to someone special, let's say it's a lady, a woman that she's going very depressed and buried underneath the offer, and I'll say, what she's asking like for an eighth of what to do, and I'll say, if you could afford to, take your credit card and go to the mall. Enjoy yourselves. Get a couple of new outfits. Get yourself a makeup thing. Go for some treatment or something.
Retail therapy.
Huh?
Retail therapy.
Retail therapy. There's a term like that.
Yeah.
I never heard it. What is it? What does it mean?
Go shopping.
Oh, that's what it's called. Retail therapy. Go shop. Yeah. My retail shopping is always in Borough Park on 16th Avenue, on the corner of 44th.
She's like wholesale.
I heard there's such a thing, retail therapy. It's a good lotion. I could use that. Retail therapy. And it works. It works. Now listen, it works. It all depends how heavy how thick the klipa is of sadness, but to be something very, very simple. Misamech yourself. Go away someplace for a day or two. Just enjoy yourself. Only had something that's mutter. I don't say go to a movie or something. Go someplace where it's nice, the ocean. Go shop and do something nice. It doesn't have to. It's nothing deep. You don't have to sit around. It's not philosophizing over. Just to get underneath that pile of offer, to get out from that pile of offer, you're buried under it, like there was an avalanche, and you're sitting under a pile of offer. And Rabbi Nachman said, whatever it is to get out, you got to get out of that place. And whatever rope is thrown to you, grab it. As long as it's mutter, according to Shulchan Aruch, that's it. As long as there's nothing else, you grab the rope, and you get out. But I'm reading an article. My wife showed me an article she was reading somewhere about this past year, because of all that has been going on, that there was these from comedians, I don't know, like Barchanim, that are very, very popular. I know some of the Barchanim, like from Chasnas I've been to, there's some very good Yiddish Barchanim. I don't know, from Jewish Barchanim, they're comedians, Jewish comedians, I don't know, even from ones. I mean, Jewish comedians, we grew up with a million of them. But from comedians, I'm not talking about Jewish comedy was mostly a Jewish thing, which we understand why. Because Jews were constantly being piled under stuff by our enemies. They dropped mountains on us all the time. And then there we are, climbing out from under the mountain with a joke. So Jews are the best comedians, always been the funniest and most effective comedians have been Jews, because of the dirt that's been thrown on us by our enemies. So Jews are unbelievably funny people. But now I heard there's a whole new thing where there are from comedians. And I was reading something about how, these people, they went to like Barchanim, to be Mesamech, on the Jews. It's a very holy thing. To make Jews live, to make people happy. It's a very, very chashuv thing. For the Gemara, there were tzaddikim like that. The Gemara tells us, Gili Elio, they were great people that their job was to make people happy. To try. Does that mean you're making somebody happy when you tell a joke? You didn't take away that sorrow. But there's such a midah. I remember also reading that there's an opinion in a person. When you laugh, I don't know science, I don't remember anything. But when you laugh, you release in your body a certain hormone, right? What's it called? Endorphins. How do you know that? So you release a certain thing that's endorphins. There's these hormones are released. So I read somewhere that even if and there's a certain mahalach this in therapy also, I'm talking about retail therapy, that if you start laughing, even though you don't feel like there's nothing, you just start to, especially if there are 2 or 3 people, and you start to laugh, even though you don't feel anything funny, you just start to laugh, that over a minute or two, because you're releasing, I don't know how it works like that, Hashem's work made in such a way, that then be'emes, you start to laugh. Then you start to laugh, even though and they have such a thing where they help people like that, where they get like a couple of sad people in a room, or whatever it is, and there's someone that's leading the group, and they stand there. It looks like they're Mishagoyim, and they start to laugh. And I said, "What are you laughing? What are you laughing?" They just start, and then they start to, and they're laughing, and they keep on laughing, and the laughing goes into mamish simcha, and then they start talking about things that they're happy about in life. They start to talk about different things, and in the middle of cracking up, they talk about things in life that are gewaldig. It's an interesting thing. That person, Hashem made that even ad kedei kach, that you have absolutely nothing. There's nothing that is on your mind that's simchadik, nothing, and you just have this thing on you, this offer and this sorrow, and if you start to laugh, Hashem made it in such a way where you're able to break through that dirt just by laughing, even though, and then eventually it becomes a real laugh, and you're able to think about some things in your life that are good, that make you happy. It's an amazing koach that Kadosh Baruch Hu gave a person. When you do that, then you are fixing this yesod of offer, and that's why Hashem brought you into a matzav where you were under some dirt in order to lift it up and to climb out of it. You remember, like it says in the note, that Hashem is oiz v'chedva b'mkarma. That when you're connected to Hashem, it's oiz v'chedva, there's joy. Oiz v'chedva b'mkarma l'chein. In the note, Heichon Hashem zach mistater v'nelam boa atzvus. Whenever Hashem is hidden from you, and you have no connection to Hashem, there's atzvus, there's sadness, there's offer. But when you're connected to Kadosh Baruch Hu, then there's oiz v'chedva. Oiz v'chedva. Look at the interesting thing. Oiz means strength, and chedva means joy. And that's what I mentioned before. What the Lubavitcher Rebbe used to say, that when there's something that's sad, so then you have to double up the simcha afterwards, because when there's simcha, there's strength. Always. And the Tanya talks about that. If two people go into a wrestling match and this guy's depressed, he's going to be even though he's much stronger. If this guy's depressed and this guy's besimcha, the depressed guy's going to lose the fight in a minute. He's going to lose, even though the guy is like a monster. He's going to lose because he's disabled by the offer of his life. The other guy's besimcha, boom, finished. Oiz v'chedva, strength and joy. That's simcha startup shenpei. Strength comes from joy. Weakness comes from sadness. And that's why the machshmamdikas, our enemies, the ones that fight against us, all they want is to bring sadness to the Jewish people. That's the way of Amalek, and that's why they're laughing all the time when they see that they get Jews involved in fighting and arguing, and that the Jews are depressed, and all these things, because they know that when people are depressed, then they lose. When there's chedva, there's ois. When there's joy, there's strength. When there's sadness, there's weakness. And our enemies are always looking for ways to bring weakness upon us. Ois v'chedva. We should be able to see that position.